Ottawa, relations between Canada and Saudi Arabia are likely to be frosty for a considerable time in the wake of this week's bruising diplomatic meltdown, and it will take determined fence-mending to restore the relationship, experts say. I think it's going to take a cooling-off period, perhaps a significant cooling-off period for this brouhaha to pass over, said Peter MacKay, who served as Foreign Affairs Minister in the previous Conservative government. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at a summit in April. Saudi Arabia has enacted a series of measures to underscore its anger at Canada's criticism of the detention of several activists in the country. Bandar al-Jaloud, Agence France Presse, Roland Paris, a former foreign affairs advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, said Saudi Arabia's extraordinary, fierce and impetuous reaction this week makes it tough to quickly get things back on an even keel. I think the chances of normalizing the bilateral relationship in the short term are quite low. The Saudis seemed to have made a decision to turn Canada into an example for other countries, said Paris, a University of Ottawa professor. Thursday passed with no further apparent recriminations from Saudi Arabia, which this week has enacted a series of measures to underscore its anger at Canada's criticism of the detention of several activists in the country. Comments it branded as blatant and unacceptable interference. Article continued below. Read more. Opinion, Thomas Walkham. Stakes are low in Canada. Saudi Arabia squabble. Loss of hundreds of Saudi medical residents will put a lot of strain on Canadian patients. Experts say Justin Trudeau vows to speak out on human rights, refuses to back down in Saudi Arabia. Dispute those measures include booting Canada's ambassador from Riyadh, returning its own envoy home, ending the studies by more than 15,000 Saudi students at Canadian universities, halting the purchase of Canadian wheat and barley, suspending flights by its national airline to Toronto, and freezing future trade and investments. There has been no word whether a $15 billion contract inked in 2014 to supply Saudi Arabia with Canadian-made light armored vehicles could also be in jeopardy. It started when Freeland and her department took to social media to protest the Saudi detention of rights activists, including Samar Badawi. Her brother Raif was arrested in 2012 and sentenced to 10 years in prison and 1,000 lashes for insulting Islam in his blogging. Ensaf Haidar, his wife, was given Canadian citizenship last month. Article continued below. Mackay framed Saudi Arabia's reaction as unreasonable, adding, "They've really gone over the top." But he said the original Twitter comments were a misstep that Freeland likely wishes she could take back. Taking to Twitter to chastise a country like Saudi Arabia is probably ill-advised. Not the wrong subject matter, not even the wrong words. But Twitter is a blunt instrument, said MacKay, who said the tweets were done in a hectoring, cavalier, righteous way. The more important question, how do we get out of this, said MacKay, now a partner in the Toronto office of the law firm Baker McKenzie. MacKay said that Freeland has already started what he called the necessary, subtle, behind-the-scenes work to resolve the crisis, noting her Tuesday telephone conversation with her Saudi counterpart, short of a complete climb down, which I don't see happening. I think it's going to take some serious diplomatic stroking behind the scenes, he said. Saudi's foreign minister has called on Canada to fix its big mistake but publicly offered no specifics on what Riyadh seeks to make amends. Trudeau on Wednesday refused to back down, stating that the federal government would always speak clearly and firmly on human rights issues. But he did offer some potentially appeasing language, saying that Saudi Arabia is making some progress when it comes to human rights. Paris said that the federal government now needs to keep its powder dry to avoid ramping up tensions. What's important is that Canada not recant its defense of human rights but signals to Saudi Arabia that it wishes a more stable relationship and that Canada not escalate this dispute any further. Paris said, the Saudis need to understand that Canada is not going to abandon its advocacy of human rights. If their position is, we'll talk to you when you're ready to apologize, that's not the basis for a constructive conversation, Paris said in an interview. He said that there are risks to Saudi Arabia too and that its arbitrary reaction could spook international investors at a time when the country is seeking billions of dollars in foreign investment to support domestic reforms. He said the reaction of other countries to the dispute, that has seen some like Jordan, Russia, Bahrain and United Arab Emirates side with Saudi Arabia while others like the U.S. and UK avoided taking sides, is a significant symbol of how global politics is changing. The stance of the U.S. government is not surprising, Paris said, given that the Trump White House has shown little interest in addressing Saudi human rights issues. More disappointing was to see European nations sitting on the sidelines, which Paris called a very uncourageous stance. What we're getting is a glimpse of what the world looks like without the United States advocating for human rights. It's a darker world in which autocrats feel emboldened and liberal democracies seek shelter, Paris said. Bruce Campion-Smith is the Star's Ottawa bureau chief and a reporter covering national politics. Follow him on Twitter, @YoFlyer.